ever get that feeling? Like you're speaking one language, but folks around you, they're hearing something totally different.
Happens all the time, right?
Well, I'm hoping today we can unlock some kind of code, get to the bottom of why people do what they do. We're doing a deep dive on the DIC model, and we're using Thomas Erikson's Surrounded by Idiots as our guide.
And it's not about slapping labels on folks.
Yeah.
Not at all. It's more about understanding the why behind the actions.
So if you're in a meeting, you could sort of predict how someone's going to react, or even change up your style to really get your point across.
You got it. That's the power of DISC right there.
Okay, you've definitely piqued my interest. But before we go full on expert mode, let's back up a sec. Just the basics. What is DISC and where did this whole thing come from?
Buckle up, because we're going way back.
Yeah.
Ancient Greece, actually. Hippocrates, the father of medicine, he had this theory of the 4 temperaments.
Okay, I'm vaguely remembering that from like a history class.
Well, he linked behavior to different bodily fluids. Blood, yellow bile, stuff like that.
Not sure that holds up scientifically today.
Right, not exactly cutting-edge science anymore, but the core idea still resonates. It's saying our temperament shapes how we act and interact.
So it's like personality, but with an extra focus on communication and relationships.
Exactly. Erikson takes that old-school concept and brings it into the modern world. His argument is that most of the miscommunication, the frustration, it comes from not seeing those different styles.
Oh, I can relate to that big time. Now, Erikson uses colors, right, to represent each DISC type: red, yellow, green, and blue.
He does.
I'm guessing it's not as simple as picking your favorite color.
You're catching on quick. Think of those colors as a shortcut to understanding those core temperaments.
Okay, I like shortcuts.
So red's dominance, yellow is influence, green is steadiness, and blue, conscientiousness.
Gotcha. All right, let's break these colors down one by one. First up, red. And I have a hunch we all know at least a few reds. So what makes them tick?
Those reds, they're the take charge types, action-oriented, decisive, driven, and that dominant label. It means they like to be in control, making quick decisions, getting things done. That's their jam.
So it sounds like a recipe for success in a lot of fields.
For sure.
But got to be a flip side, right?
Yeah.
All that intensity can't be sunshine and ruses all the time.
Oh, definitely. Biggest thing. That impatience. It can make teamwork a bit, interesting. Might bulldoze over other folks' ideas, or struggle with that whole delegation thing.
Erikson had that story, didn't he? About the CEO who turned a simple card game into like a cutthroat competition, even with his own kids.
Yeah, that's a classic. It's funny, but it also shows how a red's drive, which can be their superpower, right?
Yeah.
Can backfire if it's not balanced out. They might not even realize how they're coming across, like a bit intimidating or dismissive.
So someone who's red, super productive, gets things done, but maybe not the best at like building consensus or taking everyone's feelings into account.
It's not that they don't care, but their focus is just elsewhere. Remember, efficiency and results, that's their priority list. Long discussions, touchy-feely stuff might seem like roadblocks to them.
That's making more sense now. So how do you get your voice heard? Make sure your ideas are actually considered when you're working with a red.
Cut to the chase. Be direct. No need for chit-chat. Just lay out your ideas clear, concise, and emphasize what's in it for them. The outcomes, the benefits.
Speak their language, action, results.
You got it. They respect preparedness, and they appreciate the lack of fluff. Don't shy away from a good debate either. As long as it's about finding the best solution, they're usually game.
All right, good to know. Now let's shift gears to yellow, the social butterflies of the group, am I right?
Oh, absolutely. All about connection, influence, outgoing, persuasive, optimistic. The kind of folks who can light up a room just by walking in.
That sounds great, but I gotta ask Mo, all that energy, all the time, wouldn't that get exhausting for some people? I'm picturing someone who talks a mile a minute and never actually gets to the point.
There's the catch, right? That need to be social. It can lead to conversations going off on tangents or, struggling to stay focused on the task at hand.
Deadlines and structure are probably not their best friends.
Not their forte, that's for sure.
Erikson mentioned this, didn't he? The yellow coworker who was constantly late but just couldn't grasp why everyone else was annoyed.
Oh yeah, that one's a classic. And it's not malicious, it's just a different way of prioritizing things. For yellows, building those relationships, enjoying the moment, that often trumps strict schedules or detailed plans.
So how do you work with them effectively? Harness that energy without getting swept up in the whirlwind or frustrated by their lack of focus?
Structure's your best friend here. Clear roles, deadlines, regular check-ins, that kind of thing. It helps keep them on track. And when you're communicating with the yellow, make it engaging. Focus on the positives.
So channel that enthusiasm in the right direction, but provide the framework they might be missing.
You nailed it. And don't forget their social strengths. Need to rally the troops, present something in a way that really grabs people. A yell is your go-to person. Just got to make sure those great ideas turn into, actual actions.
This is so fascinating. I'm already starting to see people in my life through this new lens. All right, let's move on to green. They're the calm in the storm, right? Bring in balance and harmony to the group.
That's the essence of green, for sure. All about creating that peaceful, supportive environment. Patient, cooperative, amazing listeners. You need someone to cool things down when things get heated, or just lend a sympathetic ear. Green's your person.
That sounds lovely. I could use a little more calm in the storm in my life, frankly. But gotta ask, wouldn't that mean they avoid conflict like the plague, even when it needs to be addressed head on?
That's the potential downside, yeah. They might bottle things up, hesitate to speak their mind, especially if it risks disrupting the peace.
It's that whole people pleaser thing, taken to the extreme, right? Erikson mentioned a green coworker who was constantly swamped, couldn't say no to anyone.
Oh yeah, that's a classic green scenario. Their heart's in the right place, but it can backfire.
So how do you work effectively with a green? Make sure their needs are met and they're not getting taken advantage of.
Patience and clear communication are your superpowers here. Greens, they need time to process, Make decisions, don't rush them, don't pressure them, give them space.
Makes sense. It's all about building that trust, that rapport, so they feel comfortable speaking their mind.
Exactly. And if you're suggesting a change, focus on the positive, the stability, rather than emphasizing any potential disruptions.
All right, I'm starting to get the hang of this. Okay, last but not least, let's tackle blue. They're the thinkers, the analyzers, the ones who dot every I and cross every T.
You got them pegged. Detail-oriented, logical, got to have things just so. They're the ones you want double-checking your work, creating systems, analyzing data.
I'm already feeling a bit overwhelmed by their meticulousness, gotta be honest. But I can see how that attention to detail could be a strength.
Oh, it definitely is. But like all strengths, it has its shadow side.
Okay, I'm sensing a but coming.
That need for precision, it can lead to analysis paralysis. Spending so much time perfecting every tiny detail that they struggle to actually make a decision or, move forward.
Erikson had that funny story, didn't he? About the blue guy who double-checks spreadsheets with a calculator. It's like at some point, you gotta trust the technology, right?
Totally. And that story is the perfect illustration of how their strength, when it's out of balance, can become their weakness. They get stuck in the weeds, missing the bigger picture, delaying progress, because they need absolute certainty.
So how do you work effectively with a blue? Keep things moving, prevent them from getting bogged down.
Be prepared. Blues. They respect data, thoroughness. So when you come to the table, bring your A game. Well-researched info, clear arguments, no fuzzy logic allowed.
No emotional appeals or vague generalizations.
Nope. Stick to the facts, the figures, and be ready to answer their questions in detail. Just as importantly, give them time. Time to process, formulate their thoughts.
It's about respecting their need for accuracy, letting them think things through, even if it feels a bit slower than your own pace.
Exactly. They're incredibly valuable, those blues, especially when you need quality and precision. It's about finding that sweet spot, using their strengths, managing the potential weaknesses.
This is so insightful. It's like a cheat sheet for understanding people. But gotta ask, most people aren't pure red, yellow, green, or blue, right?
You're right. It's rare to find someone who fits perfectly into just one box. Most of us are a blend. And that's where it gets really interesting. Yeah, most of us are a mix, a blend of colors. Makes things a bit more complex, don't you think?
So it's like we each have our own unique color palette, shapes how we talk, how we handle stress, pretty much everything.
Exactly. And understanding those combinations, that's the secret sauce, for smoother communication, better teamwork, all that good stuff.
Okay, I'm ready to unlock the secrets. Which combo are we tackling first?
How about red-blue? It's an interesting one. Action-oriented drive meets detail-focused precision. Picture a CEO who can make a split-second decision, but also has all the data to back it up.
Sounds like a powerhouse. But wouldn't that also create some inner conflict? Part of them wants to charge ahead, the other part wants to analyze every little thing.
Oh, absolutely. That's the push and pull of any blend. A red-blue might really struggle with delegating tasks, for example.
How so?
Well, their red side's all about taking control, getting it done quickly. But their blue side worries about others not meeting their standards, those high standards.
So it's about finding that balance, right? Let the red drive the vision, but the blue, ensures the quality, the accuracy.
Exactly. Now, picture this. A yellow-green blend. You've got someone with that infectious enthusiasm, but also that calming presence. Great at bringing people together, smoothing things over when there's conflict.
Sounds like the ideal teammate. But I'm guessing there are challenges too, right? Like maybe they have trouble saying no, end up overcommitted. Or they get distracted by socializing when there's work to be done.
You're spot on. That yellow need for connection, it can clash with the green's desire for harmony and stability. They might try to please everyone, spread themselves too thin, or, get sidetracked when deadlines are looming.
So setting clear boundaries, expectations, that's key. Make sure there's space for both connection and focused work.
Exactly. Now, this one might surprise you. Blue-green seems kind of contradictory, right? But they actually share a need for a calm, stable environment.
That's an interesting combo. I can see how that would work well in certain roles, like where you need to be both meticulous and have a steady hand. But wouldn't the blues' perfectionism clash with the green's resistance to change?
Oh, it definitely can. Imagine trying to introduce a new process with the blue-green. The blue, they'd get hung up on every single detail, and the green, they'd be worried about upsetting the apple cart, disrupting the flow.
So flexibility and patience are key, right? Help the blue see the bigger picture, and the green to embrace those gradual improvements.
You're getting it. It's all about recognizing that each blend has its own strengths and challenges. Once you see the colors at play, you can anticipate those potential bumps in the road, adjust your communication style accordingly.
This is giving me so much to think about. Seriously, it's like I have this new tool for understanding the people around me. But beyond just recognizing these types, are there practical things our listeners can actually do with this knowledge, to improve communication?
Oh, absolutely. Erikson gets into the nitty-gritty of how to apply DISC in real-world situations, especially at work. One of the most valuable applications. Giving and receiving feedback effectively.
Feedback. That can be a minefield, can it? So many people struggle with it, both giving and receiving it. How does DISC help with that?
Okay, imagine you need to give some constructive criticism to a red. Do you think a long, detailed explanation with lots of emotional nuance would be the best approach?
Probably not. You'd lose them at hello, they'd be ready to jump in, fix it, move on.
Exactly. With reds, be direct, focus on the impact, offer clear solutions, no sugarcoating.
Speak their language, right?
Yeah.
Action, results. What about yellows? They seem like they might take criticism personally, even if it's meant to be helpful.
You're right to be sensitive to that. Yellows, they thrive on approval, positive reinforcement. So if you need to address an issue, start by acknowledging their efforts, their strengths. Then gently point out areas for improvement. Frame it as a chance to grow, to shine.
A little ego boost never hurts, right?
Exactly. Now, greens, they might be the easiest to give feedback to because they're so receptive, but you also don't want them just passively agreeing without really taking it in.
Yeah, I can see how that could happen. They'd say yes to keep the peace, but nothing would actually change.
Right. So with greens, create that safe, supportive environment where they feel comfortable speaking their mind. Emphasize that it's a collaboration. You're working together to find a solution.
Okay, working together, got it. What about blues? They're the ones who might overthink feedback, even if it's positive.
Oh, absolutely. Remember that blue who double-checked everything with a calculator? Same deal with feedback. They might question your methods, your wording, even want more data before they accept what you're saying.
So be extra prepared, right? Have your ducks in a row, your facts straight, and be ready to answer all their questions, all those detailed questions.
Exactly. And don't take their questioning personally. They're not disrespecting your opinion. They just need to process it through that analytical lens.
Data. Okay, this is so helpful. It really shows how that one-size-fits-all approach to communication just doesn't work.
Exactly. DISC helps us understand that we need to tailor our approach to the individual, not just the message.
It's like having a custom instruction manual for each person you interact with. Now, feedback's a two-way street, right? How does DISC help us understand how different colors receive feedback?
You bring up a great point, and it's something Erikson covers too. Just like we adjust how we deliver feedback, we got to anticipate how different colors might react to it, even when we think we're being crystal clear.
I have a feeling this is where things can go sideways, right? Misunderstandings, hurt feelings, the whole 9 yards.
You're not wrong. Remember that red CEO, the one who took the card game feedback so personally? That defensiveness is common with reds. They often see criticism as a challenge to their competence, their authority.
So it's not that they don't want feedback, it's just got to be delivered in a way that doesn't feel like a personal attack.
You got it. Focus on the behavior, not the person. Emphasize the positive impact that change will have, how it'll help them achieve their goals.
Frame it in a way that makes sense to them. Okay, what about yellows? How do they tend to react to constructive criticism?
Yellows might deflect, downplay the feedback, often with humor or by shifting the focus to something positive. Remember that coworker, always late, but just a few minutes.
Classic yellow. They can't bear the thought of someone seeing them in a negative light.
Right. Social approval is so important to them that any criticism can feel like a personal rejection. So with yellows, extra encouragement, extra support. Focus on their strengths, their potential.
A little sugar with the medicine, huh? What about greens? How do they handle those tough conversations?
Greens are more likely to just internalize feedback, even if they don't agree with it. Remember that green manager, hesitant to address conflict. They might just nod along, but inside they're feeling hurt, maybe even resentful.
So you got to make sure they feel safe to speak their mind, even if they disagree with you.
Absolutely. Encourage them to share their perspective. Really listen without judging. Reassure them that their voice matters. You're working together to find a solution.
Collaboration, not confrontation. Got it. All right, last one. How do blues typically respond to feedback? I'm betting they overanalyze every little thing.
You know it. Remember that blue? The one who double-checked everything with a calculator? That same meticulousness? It applies to feedback too. They might question your method, your wording, anything that feels even slightly subjective.
So again, be prepared. Right. Have your facts straight. Be ready for all the questions.
Exactly. Don't take it personally if they dig deep. Ask a lot of questions. They're not doubting you. They just need to process everything logically.
Okay, this has been so eye-opening. It's amazing how much understanding these different reactions can help, to navigate those tricky situations and prevent conflicts.
It really does make a difference. And it reminds us that even when people are acting in ways we don't get, there's often an underlying reason.
Like, it's not personal. It's more about their personality.
Exactly. It's about how they're processing things, how they're dealing with stress, not necessarily malicious intent.
Like that saying, hurt people hurt people. Sometimes what looks like rudeness is just a cry for help.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And by understanding these DISC principles, we can move beyond judgment, approach those situations with more empathy, more understanding.
This has been such an insightful deep dive. We've covered so much ground, the basics of DISC, communication tips, stress triggers. But there's still more to uncover, right? What other gems are hidden in Erikson's book?
Well, in part 3, we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of team dynamics. We'll look at some real-world examples, case studies that bring these principles to life. Plus, we'll leave you with some actionable tips, things you can start using in your own life right away. So stay tuned.
Okay, we're back and ready to wrap up our DISC deep dive. We've talked about individual styles, communications, stress, all that good stuff. But I'm really curious how this all plays out in teams, when you throw all those different colors together.
That's where it gets really interesting. You get that synergy or, the potential for chaos. Depends on how well those different colors understand each other.
Makes sense.
Erikson has this great example, a team-building exercise. He divided folks into groups based on their DISC type, gave them a problem to solve. It's like a real-life lab experiment to see how those different personalities tackle a challenge.
Okay, I'm picturing this. 4 groups, red, yellow, green, blue. Let me guess, the reds, they probably jumped right in, ready to conquer the challenge.
You know those reds?
Yeah.
Action-oriented, right? Brainstorming ideas a mile a minute, assigning roles, figuring out the fastest way to get it done. They probably had a plan sketched out before the other groups even finished reading the instructions.
Efficiency at its finest. What about the yellows? Did they turn the whole thing into a party?
Well, they were definitely the most energetic, the most collaborative, loved bouncing ideas off each other, created a really fun, lively atmosphere.
Yeah.
But yeah, they might have gotten a little sidetracked along the way.
So lots of enthusiasm, but maybe needed a little guidance to stay focused. What about those greens? I'm picturing a more laid-back approach, making sure everyone felt comfortable and included.
Spot on. Greens. They were all about teamwork, cooperation. Really took their time, considered each step, made sure everyone had a voice in the decision-making process. Might not have been the fastest, but definitely the most cohesive.
Sounds like a dream team to work with, even if they're not always the quickest. Okay, last but not least, the blues. I'm betting they approached it like a research project.
You got it. Those blues, laser-focused on accuracy, precision, probably asked for more information, dissected the problem from every angle, came up with a super detailed plan.
with contingencies for everything.
So maybe the most thorough, but also the slowest to reach a solution.
It's possible. But the point isn't that one group was better than the others. What's fascinating is that each group, they found a solution, but they got there in completely different ways, which really reflects their strengths, right?
It really highlights how valuable that diversity of thought can be. You wouldn't want a team full of only reds or only greens, would you? Absolutely not. The best teams, the ones that really get things done, they recognize those different strengths, figure out how to use them to their advantage. Imagine a team with a red leader, to drive the vision, a yellow to keep spirits high, a green to make sure everyone's working together smoothly, and a blue to keep things on track and make sure everything's top-notch quality.
Now that's what I call a dream team. Of course, finding that perfect balance in real life, well, that's easier said than done.
It takes work, definitely. But by understanding DISC, you can start to see those different perspectives as assets, appreciate how they can actually complement each other.
It's like those puzzles. Each piece is different, but they all fit together to make a complete picture.
Love that analogy. And just like a puzzle wouldn't be as interesting if all the pieces were the same, a team wouldn't be as effective if everyone thought the same way, right?
This has been such a great deep dive. I feel like I have a whole new toolkit for understanding the people around me. But beyond just recognizing these types, what are some practical things our listeners can do, to actually use this in their own lives?
First things first, pay attention. Be observant. Notice how people communicate, how they make decisions, how they react to stress. See if you can spot those patterns, figure out what their dominant color might be.
Be a DISC detective. Okay, once you have an idea of someone's type, what then? How do you actually use that knowledge to improve your interactions?
Adapt your approach. Talking to a red, be direct, focus on action. With a yellow, be enthusiastic, positive. Greens, be patient, create a collaborative vibe. And blues, be ready with those facts and figures. Give them time to think things through.
So it's all about meeting people where they are, speaking their language.
Exactly. And remember, it's not about manipulating people or trying to force them into a box. It's about recognizing that we all have our own strengths, our own weaknesses. And by understanding those differences, we can work together better, build stronger relationships.
This has been such a fantastic deep dive. I've learned so much. I feel like I can actually use this in my everyday life.
It's been a pleasure sharing this with you. And remember, learning about human behavior, it's a lifelong journey. DISC is just one tool to help us along the way, And
on that note, it's time to wrap up this episode of The Deep Dive. We hope you enjoyed exploring the DISC model with us. Keep learning, keep connecting with the folks around you, and maybe, just maybe, you'll see the world and the people in it in a whole new light. Until next time.